The popularity of dual chamber cases is at an all-time high, which means your number of options from manufacturers has exploded. The only problem is they all just kind of blend together. I mean, you have the OG fish tank from Lee & Lee, or this other fish tank case from Lee & Lee, or this fish tank from NZXT, or this one, or any of these, or hell, you even have this actual fish tank. That's led some manufacturers like Height to try and take a new angle on things. See what I did there? And that leads us to today's case from NZXT, the new H6 Flow, where they tried to take a new angle on the angle from Height by moving the angle 90 degrees. I think that makes it a triangle. Somebody check my math in the comments and let's just dive into this. So if you haven't figured it out already, today we're looking at the new H6 Flow from NZXT. It's a mid-tower dual chamber case with tempered glass front and side, but NZXT is kind of taking a new angle on cooling. Instead of using your traditional front or side intakes that you see on pretty much every other tempered glass fish tank looking case, they've actually moved it to this front corner right here, where it now houses 3 120mm fans that come pre-installed. So the case comes in two different versions, with the only difference being the pre-installed fans. You have your non-RGB version, which comes with 3 120mm fans coming in at right at $110 US. You also have an RGB version of this case clocking in right at $140. It's the exact same case. The only difference is they swap out the 3 non-RGB fans with RGB fans, obviously. So let's get this thing busted apart and take a look at what it's gonna be like to build inside of it. So the top panel just pops right off. One thing of note, there is no included dust filter. It's built into the panel. I do like when manufacturers give you like a magnetic dust filter. One, it's easy to slide on and off and clean without actually having to bust open your case. And two, I think they do a little bit better job. We'll see after using this for a little while, especially in an office setting that can kind of get dusty. Up top, you have room for up to a 360mm rad or fans if you're going air cooled. One thing of note is there isn't a removable bracket, so that's not a necessity, but it is a nice to have. Makes building in your case a little bit easier. The front tempered glass as well as the back panel are removable with just 2 thumb screws right here. So pay attention when you're pulling these out. They're semi-captive, so they don't come out, but they do, if you keep going, they do actually unscrew all the way. So everything's off. You can see really clearly the 3 120mm included fans. They are NZXT F120s, so solid fans. They're gonna be good at moving air. I do think this angled placement is gonna work really well with airflow. The way it'll pull air in and kind of help it circulate around the case to get around all of your components. On the bottom, you have room for 2 140mm fans. Now, this is another one of those areas where I get the design choice. I know why they went with it. I'm not sure if I like it or hate it. So you can only use 140mm fans. So there isn't multiple options to throw 120s in there. The mounting points are pre-drilled and fixed. So taking a look at the back side of the case, NZXT does give you a decent amount of room to build. I mean, it's not the biggest area for a dual chamber case, but then again, the case itself is a lot smaller than some of the bigger dual chambers like the 011 or Heights that are on the market. It should be more than enough. You have the hard drive case, which is removable. It supports a standard HDD as well as 2 2.5-inch SSDs. It also supports up to a 200mm power supply. Now, that's one thing I want to touch on. So right here we have the MSI MPG A850. So this is a 150mm power supply. And you can see by the time you slot this in, you're not left with a ton of room for cable management. If you're planning to use the hard drive cage and you have an HDD and you have a couple of SSDs you plan to mount in here, your cable management space could get a little tight. Everything comes out of the box like this, pre-installed, pre-cable managed, daisy chained. Front panel connectors, they did a really good job putting those together. But again, I am a little concerned that it could get tight in here. One last thing you need to know if you're planning to build in this case, it has to do with the actual intake fans. While they're great for airflow, NZXT did not leave you enough room to mount a radiator there. If you're like me and you like to set your AIO or your RADs as intake to get that cool air cooling your CPU, you don't have an option for that. I mean, you could technically mount your radiator on top intaking, but if you do that, then you're working against the laws of physics, guys. Like, hot air likes to rise. So hot air rises, cool air sinks. If you have something mounted at the top, it's always better to have that set to exhaust and to be intaking from the bottom or intaking from the sides. It's not a deal breaker. Like I said, we are still building in this case. I love every other aspect of it, but you definitely want to keep that in mind, and it's something that you need to know when you're going to plan your build. The build quality of the case itself is solid. I've actually had some NZXT cases in the past that would kind of be rattly or loose or flimsy. This thing is solid. And finally, this is a little bit harder to see on camera, so we'll get in here with the camera in just a second and look, but there are no grommets for the cable management. So depending on the angle you have your case, you will be able to see straight into it. So if you did do a bad job cable managing, or if it's a big mess coming out of here, you're gonna be able to see that. Again, for us, this is going under a desk, not an issue. And I think for a lot of people, it's not gonna be an issue, especially as long as you cable manage it okay. At $110, it is significantly cheaper than a lot of the other dual chamber options out there in the market. Come back and check out our build video. We'll have a better idea if I can truly recommend it, but as it stands, I'm pretty happy with this purchase. I think you guys will be too.